Good evening, everybody. I'm Melissa Cole. I'm the author of The Beer Kitchen, and welcome to, well, my kitchen. Thank you very much for joining us for the Big Drop Cookalong. This is the beer we'll be using this evening, which is the Double Strike Sour, and I am quite excited about this. It's a really, really simple dish. It's one that I've been making for quite a long time now, and it's a warm kale and chorizo salad. Now, we've also offered vegetarian and vegan options for this, so if you've got your smoked tofu and your vegan yogurt, then grab that as well. Make sure you do that, and if not, get your ingredients ready. I'm going to grab a pinny and a couple of cloths, and then also, another beer from the fridge, because who doesn't want to have a beer while they're cooking? And we'll get started, shall we? You ready? Let's go. Okay, so such are the challenges of home filming. You'll be pleased to know you won't have to look at my face now. Oh, I forgot to get my beer from the fridge. Hang on a sec. That's important stuff, isn't it? Right, let's get that first. Okay, so I've got a Big Drop Paradiso Citra IPA there. So first things first. One of the things that quite frequently happens is that your board will slip around the place. So let's make sure that you've got, I've got just a damp cloth here, and I'm just going to put that underneath my board, make sure it's nice and flat, and then your board will be nice and secure. So that's first things first. So then what we're going to do is we're going to start our prep. So as you can see, I've laid out all my ingredients here, and what we're going to do is what's known as mise en place, but it's just your preparation. So we're going to start by stripping the kale leaves. Now, you don't want these hard stalks in the middle. So the easiest thing to do, you could sit here and you could do this with your knife and all that sort of stuff, but honestly, I genuinely find it easier just to do that. Also, another little tip, you might notice I've got a little bin in the background here. Originally bought it to stop putting hot tea bags in the bin, because that's what makes your bin smell quite often. But I found it extremely useful in the meantime for using when I'm doing food prep, so you get things out of the way. So working clean is one of the best things that you can do for yourself. Making sure that you're working clean and getting things out of your way and as you go along. Now, I tell you this as somebody who was genuinely nicknamed the Atomic Chef when I was at university. So, honest to God, that was what happened. It was actually the first time I ever cooked for my husband, and I misread the recipe, how much it was. So knowing that he really liked fish, I went to Preston Fish Market, which is where I went to university, and I bought loads of fish for this recipe from the late great Gary Rhodes' book, and I started making croquettes. About a fifth of the way into this process, I actually stopped to look about how many it made, and it made something like 60. So we were there quite a long time, and I'd only just started teaching myself how to cook at this point. And to say that, I just put the wrong thing in the bin because I'm talking to you guys, never mind. To say that we made a mess because it involved panning and flour and eggs and breadcrumbs is the understatement of the century. So after about 3 hours, when we'd finished making all of these croquettes, my housemate and his visiting dad came home, and the first thing that Paul, who I now still call my brother, who I love dearly, hey Paul, and his dad walked into the kitchen and said, something slightly ruder than crikey, are you the Atomic Chef? And that was that. So I've got to be honest with you, I have cheated a little bit. I did strip a little bit of this kale earlier. I just wanted to get ahead of the game a little bit. So by the way, you might think you're looking at this and you're thinking, well, that's not kale. It is, it's Cavolo Nero. It's called black kale. It's what I could get in my supermarket this morning. So that's that prepared. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare the onion. So just going to take the root off and the tip. I'm going to grab my little bin, and I'm going to pop the skins in. Even if you obviously, if you haven't got a little bin, then just having a bowl beside you would be a really good shout. I'm just going to peel off the tough outside skin, get rid of all of that. Normally, I would actually leave this for stock. So what I do is I have a stock vegetables pot in the freezer. So when I'm doing things like this, obviously you don't want the grotty bit like that, but when I'm doing things like this, I would normally always save it for stock. But obviously, because I've been doing so much home cooking, even more than usual, I've actually got a totally full freezer of stock. So that's I haven't got anywhere to put it, but this is a really good thrifty tip. So whilst you might still be prepping your kale and things like that, your thrifty tip here is to save all of this, because it's still got flavour in it. There's no reason not to use it and save it. And you just pop them all in pots. So celery, onions, even if you're chopping the end off a bulb of garlic, something like that, stick it all in a pot. Fennel, if you're making chicken stock, or certainly any form of base stock for Chinese cooking, you get that nice aniseed flavour. Stick it all in. Carrots have gone a bit past their sell-by date. Peel off any grotty bits on the outside, chuck them in. And then when you come to make roast chicken next time, or even if you just want to make veg stock, you've got all of those vegetables ready for you. Hasn't cost you anything more, and you're also not having to buy stock from the supermarket. So there's our onion, it's done. I'm just going to put my little bin back over there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to get rid of the grotty bit. There we go, let's get rid of that. And then I'm going to cut the onion in half, so you can see I've left the root intact there. So make sure that you've done that. And then I'm going to slice them into half moons, or sort of crescent moons, I beg your pardon. So it might come away a bit, don't worry about it, it's not the end of the world. So just slice it like that. There you go. And then again, I'm going to do the same thing with the other half. So nice and simple, not complicated. There we go. So we've done that. I've got a little prep bowl there. So that's the other thing as well. All of these freebie ramekins you get with those puds you buy from the supermarket, don't throw them away. They are invaluable for your mise en place. So now the good thing that you can't see right now is I'm terrible when I'm cutting onions. My eyes water, I get all sniffly and snuffly, so it's kind of good that you're only looking at my hands right now. So next thing to do is I just want to prep our little dressing. Now, that's the other thing as well, is that I really think it's a great idea if you hang on to a couple of jars as well, differing sizes for different things. So, because then what you can do is you can make the world's easiest dressing. So, I'm just going to squeeze the lemon juice, trying to hit the jar as opposed to my board. Squeeze the lemon juice into there. Don't worry if you get a pip in there, you can fish it out in a second. Trying to strain it through my fingers. There you go. If you've got a lemon juicer, you can use that, of course. I'm just going to fish that little seed out using one of my measuring spoons, which I'm being wholly unsuccessful at. This is like getting eggshell out of something. So, there we go, got it. And then I'm also going to use some of the oil from the sun-dried tomato jar. So, all you need, juice of half a lemon and a tablespoon of the oil from the jar. There you go. So, that is just a little dressing. Put it in the jar, give it a shake. Happy days. So, by the way, what I've got on my, attached to my, when I said I was going to get a couple of cloths, I've got one on the front and one on the back. So the one on the front, used for wiping down boards, that's your wet cloth. The one at the back, you keep dry for handling warm dishes and baking sheets and stuff. So that's a really good tip as well, because it means that you don't end up grabbing a damp towel and burning your hand, because trust me, there's nothing worse than picking out something like a big roast or something like that, and then halfway as it's out of the oven, you start feeling the heat coming through. So, time for a little sip, I think. hopefully you guys are there now with your kale and your onions. So now I'm just going to take some of these sun-dried tomatoes out of the jar. So I'm using 8 of them. I know this is a super retro kind of ingredient. 6, 7, 8, but I love sun-dried tomatoes, and I hate the way that they've been vilified over the years as being, oh god, it's all about the 90s and all that sort of stuff. They are deeply flavoursome. If you're not quite a fan of sun-dried tomatoes, then please by all means use fresh tomatoes or oven-baked tomatoes, sun-blushed tomatoes, or if you just don't like them at all, leave them out, substitute something else. Maybe jarred artichokes are your thing. You could always chuck that in as well. My big belief is, and I say this as somebody who rarely even follows their own recipes, is that I'm a big believer is that recipes are just generally there as a guide. If you want particularly savoury recipes, baking recipes you have to be a little bit more diligent with because they are more science than anything. But savoury cooking has a tendency to be more of an art, certainly at the level that, of an art than a science, certainly at the level that I do it anyway, because I am not by any means a professional. So, there we go. We've chopped up our sun-dried tomatoes. We're going to get one of those handy little ramekins. I'm going to pop that in there. And I'm going to just put that aside. I'm going to use my handy cloth again, because obviously you don't want to be handling things with oily hands. Actually, also what I've done is I've just put myself a little bowl of water there, just in order to be able to do that. So that's good. So just give the board a wipe down again. There we go. Just going to wipe my knife off. And there we are. So, next thing to do is to prep your sausages. So you do this last because this is a raw product. So what we want to do is we want to just very gently split the skin. So all I'm doing is I'm literally just using the weight of the knife just to pierce the skin. And then what you do is you peel it off. If you've got kids who like getting mucky in the kitchen, this is a good job for them. At this point, if you're using the smoked tofu, then what you can be doing is you can be chopping this into chunks. So that makes it nice and easy to use. I'm a really huge fan of smoked tofu, actually. I actually use it in quite a lot of dishes when I want to replace meat. It's a very, very versatile product. I think we're all, as a general rule, trying to eat a little bit less meat in our lives, and it is one of those things where it really makes you just don't even notice you're missing meat in any way, shape or form. It's got a real sort of genuine texture to it, and because it's got that smoky flavour, you feel like it's got something more to it. So, very versatile product. So we're nearly there. We're peeling our sausages. I grabbed these from the supermarket this morning, easy peasy. There we go. Happy days. So what we want to do now is we just want to break these into little balls. There you are, just like that. Or if you want smaller bite-sized pieces, just like that. Entirely up to you. It's your decision, it's your dish, it's your mouth. You know how big it is. I can hear my friends giggling if any of them are watching about big mouths right now. So just going to pop them back in the bowl that the sausages were sitting in already. Nice and simple. You're not looking for a Michelin star. You don't need to worry about, are they exactly the same size? Are they perfectly round? Who gives the monkeys? Nobody does. Seriously, if anybody's complaining about that in your house, chuck them out. So, we're just doing that with the little chorizo balls. If you wanted to, veggies and vegans, if you wanted to make this a little bit more similar in flavour, then what you could also do is you could toss your smoked tofu in some smoked paprika, because that's one of the major flavours of this, and maybe some chilli powder. because the major flavours in chorizo and in India are paprika and chilli. So if you wanted to make that a little bit more authentic tasting, then absolutely do. And by the way, I've just suddenly realised that actually my packet of sausages was 200 grams, not 150, but frankly, who gives a monkeys? So, there we go. Nearly there. So that is nearly all of our prep done. So I'm just going to wash my hands again in this little bowl, convenient little bowl. And I'm just going to use the other side of that cloth to dry them. And then I'm going to take everything over to the cooker. And my beer. And we'll start cooking the dish. See you in a sec. Is over here. I've also brought over the sunflowers, which I've put in a little pot, and the goat's yogurt. Again, don't worry if you couldn't get goat's yogurt, you can use natural yogurt, that's not a problem. I've brought the beer over as well, and what we're going to do is we're going to start by charring the onions. Now, charring vegetables is a very good way to not only cook them but also get flavour into things. So, I'm actually going to be a little bit careful, obviously, don't burn your fingers, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to place them so that they don't break up entirely into the pot. So charring vegetables is something that's very common in Mexican cuisine, for example. So that's all the salsas, as a general rule, will start by charring vegetables first. And there we go. So we're just popping these in. Oh, cut that one a bit chunky. Bad, Melissa. And we'll get all those going. So there we are. You can hear straight away they're sizzling. There's no oil involved in this at all because you want to get them nice and charred on the outside. Now, you might have noticed that I'm cooking with a sour style of beer. One of the things that I really strongly recommend to people is that you don't cook with beers, as a general rule, like this. So don't cook with an IPA unless you are using it right at the very end to give a little bitter balance or a little bit of a piney or floral, grapefruity note to things. And I say this as someone who cooked what I can only describe as the most disgusting thing in the world, and that was grapefruit chicken stew. It's a real sort of throwback dish, grapefruit chicken, and it's one of those things where I really thought, oh, this will be the perfect pairing, it will work really well, grapefruit chicken salad. Everybody kind of likes that, don't they? Well, only if you like something that tastes like a burning tyre fire. It's absolutely revolting, because what happens is a couple of things. One is that it tends to be a little leftover sugar in beer, not a lot, but actually carbohydrates. It's in the form of carbohydrates, and that means that they will burn. Also, you're reducing something that's naturally bitter down, right down, and you are left with that bitter compound, and it's really, really, really not pleasant. So I don't know whether you can just see here. I actually have an attached rack of cooking implements here. It's really, really handy that you can just literally go like that when you can get it off the hook, and you've then got all of your implements to hand. So you might have noticed it earlier when I was filming over there. I've got little hooks suckered onto the tiles. It's a really great way not to damage your tiles, but still have everything that you want to hand. Just don't overload them, otherwise they fall down in the middle of the night and scare the heck out of you. So, just beginning to get a little bit of char on that, I hope you can see. I do apologise for any imperfect lighting. I've got a little problem in my flat at the moment in that we've had some leaks from upstairs and I don't have any overhead lights, so sorry if it's a little bit glary. I'll try and do my best for you. So, we're just letting those char a little bit, making sure that we've got everything. Oh, the other thing that you're going to need as well, whilst those are charring, if you haven't brought them over, is your measuring spoons. You're also going to need a lid, or if you haven't got a lid for your pan, then maybe get a bowl or a plate that's big enough to fit over the top. If not, you can always just chuck a tea towel over the top. Just don't try and set light to it like a famous chef did on TV the other day. I'm actually quite terrified I'm going to do that at some point or another. I'm not unknown. So, there we are. We're beginning to get a lovely char on these. So I'm just going to turn them over. You can kind of smell, I mean, one of the things about cooking as well is that it is a multi-sensory thing. If you if you pay attention to what your nose is telling you, which is vital when you're doing all things really. If you're trying a beer, if you really don't like the smell of it, it's really unlikely you're going to like the taste of it, because actually your nose is absolutely invaluable in the tasting process. Without being able to smell, you can't taste. If you think about it, you know that, because when you get a cold, or you dread the virus at the moment, you lose your sense of taste. You lose the sense of smell. And when you lose your sense of smell, you lose your sense of taste. So, just turning these over, and get a good char. You guys aren't doing very well in that corner there. Let's get you done. And also at the moment I have in the oven, in a very low oven, I have a bowl that's warming so that I can put these in, and then also the chorizo will go in with them in a bit once I've cooked that, and also my serving bowl as well. I think this is entirely coming from my dad, who gets very cross if food is served on not warmed plates. It's honest to God one of the first things he does when he goes into a restaurant, apart from winding the staff up, but you know, like father, like daughter. So we're just going to char those off. I'm making sure that they're done properly so that we're doing this in real time together. And so that's why I'm giving you a few hints, tips and terrible family stories along the way. This is also a good time to stop and take a sip of your beer. And there we go. So we should almost be there. You can smell that they're charring on the other side. If you don't have one of these sets of tongs with the little thing that pulls them closed, I really recommend them. Because if you're cooking something like a lamb chop or a pork chop or a couple of them, what you can do is you can use these to hold them onto the fat side. So you put them around it and then you pull it closed as much as it can, and it will allow you to render the fat without burning your hands as you're holding it over the pan. So it's a really handy one. And of course, because they're rubberized here, it means that you can still pick up the tongs afterwards. So hopefully we are there. We are nearly there. So I'm just going to grab my bowl from the back, using the towel from the back of my pin, tucked into the back of my pinny. And I'm just going to grab this little bowl out. So, here we go. Here are our onions. Just pop them in there. They'll carry on cooking under their own steam a little. You can pop some foil over the top if you want to as well. And there we are. There are our charred onions. You can put a deeper char or a lesser char on them depending on your personal tastes. So, grab my cloth and pop those back in the warm oven. I'm just going to turn my pan down a little bit now, because I actually want the chorizo to cook through. So just let that, I'm just going to move that off the heat for a sec. Turn that down a little bit more. I can tell you right now that it's getting quite warm in my kitchen at the moment, because obviously I can't have windows open because there's all sorts going on outside, even in this time. So, pop your little chorizo balls in, come on out. Got a shy one. Just going to put that in my sink, which is just over there. Again, trying to keep my area as clean and uncluttered as possible. And we're just going to cook these little chorizo balls there. So, whilst we're doing that, I'm just going to take the top of my goat's yoghurt so that I can get to that nice and easily. So, when we're cooking with beer, it's always worth thinking about the sort of tenets of beer and food pairing as well as what you're actually putting in the food. So it's about complement, contrast, and cut, and also create. Sometimes you can create a flavour, which is really exciting when you can. So, when you are doing this, so the reason why I'm using, for example, the sour beer, which is sour because it uses lactobacillus in it, I'm using it because I'm using it as an extra add to the lemon juice in the dressing. It'll be going in the actual pan, but you can use it as an extra little touch of acidity. Now, acidity is one of the things that people really underestimate when it comes to cooking. A lot of people will often over-season a dish because they just don't think that the flavours are singing. And eventually, what you actually do is it becomes counterproductive. What you want to be doing is adding some acidity. So whether that's a splash of vinegar or lemon juice or a sour beer, then, or for example, pomegranate molasses or tamarind, all of these things, what they do is they help separate out the flavours on your palate. So they help your palate understand all the flavours that are coming out of it even better. So you will be able to create a much better flavour experience in a finished dish by putting a little drop of lemon juice or sour beer in at the end. So these are frying away nicely, as you can see, and probably here. We're just going to make sure that they're cooked through, giving them a nice little bit of maillard on the outside, so a little bit of caramelisation on the outside of them, just because that's a flavour that our palate loves. It's quite frequently mistaken with umami. Umami is actually the fifth flavour, so you've got sweet, sour, salty, bitter and umami. I think there's a quite strong science to say that fat and the sense of heartiness that you get from carbohydrates, which is known as kokumi, will actually join them soon. So at this point we just have those, so sweet, sour, salty and umami. And umami is actually a sense of savouriness. So it's things that you get in Marmite, in aged hams, aged cheeses, and it's an amino acid, collection of amino acids which give you those flavours. So these are very nearly done. That's the joy of breaking them up into little balls. So hopefully you're nearly there as well. Don't forget that these will carry on cooking in the warm oven for you. It shouldn't be a hot oven, just a warm oven, but they'll have created enough heat inside themselves, and also when they sit in the warm oven that they will carry on cooking. So don't risk burning them. Get a nice crispiness on them, and then let's get them in the bowl with those onions. Probably should have used it. We're going to need a bigger bowl, as the old saying goes. So, just going to pop those in there. And the nice thing is that all the spice-laden fat that comes from the chorizo is going to flavour those onions sitting underneath it as well. So you'll get a bit of an amalgamation in your dish. So, I think we're just about going to manage. Fingers crossed. Yep, there we go. Now you'll have quite a lot of burnt flavours in the pan, so whilst normally I'd suggest that you do use what's in the bottom of the pan there, I'm actually going to say don't this time and say wipe this out. So I've got my kitchen roll here, going to get a couple of pieces of that just to make sure I don't burn my hands, and I'm just going to wipe out the pan. Take it off the heat. If you want to use another pan, then please by all means do. There's no problem with that, but I think that this is quite simply a much better way to do things because it limits the washing up. It's more time to sit in front of the TV and enjoy a beer. So, have actually had to open a window now. It's too smoky. So, next thing is to turn this right down and to get your sunflower seeds. So, we want, sorry, I just had to clean off my measuring spoons, I forgot to do that. We want 2 tablespoons of sunflower seeds. There we go. If you didn't manage to get sunflower seeds, then by all means, pine kernels, chia seeds, pumpkin seeds, anything like that, and you'll be away. I'm just going to grab another one of those handy little ramekins for when these are done. So this is another aspect that quite frequently people forget, is that texture is incredibly important in a dish. So when you're thinking about a dish, you want to build different layers of texture. So there'll still be a little bit of crunch in the kale. There'll be some little bit of crunch on the outside of the chorizo. There'll still be a little bit of body to the onions, but there won't be actually any direct full-blooded crunch. So you can hear these are starting to pop. This is the point where I hope one doesn't hit me in the face. There we go. So you just give them a little shake. This is, honest to God, one of the hardest things to do is to do this and not burn them. I actually now have a tendency to put these in a little tiny frying pan that I've got that's oven safe and put them in the oven on about 140, and it tends to get a much more even golden colour to them. So feel free to take that tip. It also works with pine kernels as well. So let's just keep tossing them, make sure that they're okay. I'm just going to grab a wooden spoon from my handy little rack, which I put a little bit of string through the top of. And there we go, those are nice and golden brown, so very quick. And let's see if I can get them all in the ramekin without throwing it all over the sideboard. Again, atomic chef, remember. So just return your pan to the warm. There's always one. You do want to get that out of there, otherwise it will burn. So just going to return the pan to the heat, and I'm just going to take another sip of beer so that we just have a little relax, make sure that you're all caught up, and just have a little moment of break. So, hopefully you're all caught up. Next thing to do is to grab your packet of pre-cooked grains or the pre-cooked grains that you've done yourself. I have a tendency just to grab these because they're really handy to have in the oven. There's no sponsorship involved here, so you're welcome, Merchant Gourmet. These are just great. They're really, really handy. They are microwavable. I don't actually have a microwave, not for any particular reason other than my kitchen doesn't normally look like this on the sideboards. It's normally full of things and stuff, so I don't actually have room for a microwave. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use half of the packet. There we go. It's about half. Again, don't need to be worrying about being totally exact. I'm just going to give that a little shake, and then I'm going to add roughly a couple of tablespoons of this beer. Now, normally I wouldn't recommend putting most styles of beer directly into a hot pan, but actually with a sour beer, because it's got so few hops in it, you'll be absolutely fine. So, just going to let that cook. So effectively this just mirrors the way that you put it in the microwave. I'm going to add my sun-dried tomatoes. Make sure I get all those out. I'm just going to let that cook for a moment, stir it round. Let some of the herbs that are in the oil and the sun-dried tomatoes mingle with those grains. So that already looks quite nice. I'm just going to add a little bit of seasoning. So some salt, some pepper, sorry. Even though you've got that pepper in the chorizo, that's fine. And a very small amount of salt. It's always better to go low at the beginning and then go higher at the end, if you need to. But actually, there's so much lovely different layered acidity in this dish, I find that you really don't need a lot of salt. And also these tend to be already pre-seasoned. Sometimes they come in different flavours as well, so if you enjoy that, go for it. So there we go, that's almost reduced. I'm just going to take my serving spoons. Oh, it's got some friends in sunflower seeds. And put just over 3 tablespoons of the goat yogurt in. I'll mix that around a little bit. And then, because I didn't quite have time, that's my fault, to let the pan cool quite enough, I'm going to just add a little bit more liquid in the form of the beer. Don't worry, you'll still have plenty left over to drink. And then I'm going to pop our kale in. So this is why you need quite a big pan, because whilst it reduces to nothing, it takes up quite a lot of space, first of all. So, there's our kale. You can tear it like this if you want to make sure that it's in smaller pieces, or you can leave it in the longer pieces. It's entirely up to you. I'm just going to do this so that it reduces down a lot better, a lot quicker. So there you go. I'm just going to mix it in a little bit so that it gets a bit of moisture. And you can see, look, it's already reducing. Here we are. And I'm just going to pop the lid on the right way. Helps, Melissa. There we go. And I'm just going to leave that to do its thing for now. So, as I was saying, we want to work clean. So I'm just going to remove this, that out of the way. And I'll move the things that I don't need out of the way as well, so that we can welcome our chorizo and onions back to the party. Oh no, I do need that. That's my toasted sunflower seeds. Sorry. Okay. So don't forget, we've got a little bit of dressing which is ready to get another shake. I'm just going to check on our kale. That probably just needs another turn over with the tongs. There you are. Nice and easy, beginning to reduce and wilt beautifully. Lovely colours. Really like the colours in this dish. There we go. And then I'm going to grab out my serving bowl. And the chorizo and onions. Okay, so at this point, you should be making sure that you've got another cold beer in the fridge, or you've got a glass ready for your double strike sour. And what we're going to do is we're just going to move this around, make sure that our kale is as coated with the bits and pieces as it can be. You can do the fancy flipping thing now if you like, but I have a tendency to find that, particularly with deep pans like this, you end up decorating your hob more than you actually achieve mixing things in. It's easier with something that's a bit flatter and a bit more beveled. So, there we go. Right, you can see that's all wilted down beautifully. And we are ready to serve. I'm sorry, I've just noticed I keep on banging my tongs on the edge of the pan. Sorry if that keeps on deafening you. Okay, so I've got a warm serving bowl there. Yep, just warm. I'm gonna pop the kale in, get the spelt in. Sorry, it's freekeh. My apologies. I couldn't find any spelt. The recipe normally calls for spelt. I won't totally scrape the bottom of my frying pan with those. Get my wooden spoon back. There we are. Get all of that out. I'm going to shake my dressing. I'm going to put half of that on. Oh, that's just about hand hot, that's perfect. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to spread the chorizo and the onions all about place. Make it nice and appetising. If you've got a bigger dish, obviously this would look a lot nicer, spread out all over the place, but frankly, I just don't have one. There you are. Get some of those chorizos up. Get a bit of kale showing. As I said, Michelin starred this ain't, in case you hadn't already noticed. Get any of the juices that are in there out. Those out of the way. Put the rest of your, sorry, I forgot to give that a little shake. Put the rest of your dressing on. And then sprinkle over your crunch. Which is actually quite warm still, so be careful. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a very simple dish to make with the Big Drop double strike sour. Just really simple, really easy. Hopefully you've enjoyed the cook along. I've certainly enjoyed cooking with you. Cheers. I hope you have a lovely evening and that you really have enjoyed cooking along with me. This has been a very surreal experience not having an audience, but it's been really pleasing to share some of my knowledge and hints and tips with you, and I hope you've learned something. If not, at least I hope you've got a lovely dinner ahead of you. Cheers. Well then folks, that's it from me this evening. I will be answering any queries you've got on the socials. If you want to buy some of Big Drop's beer, then go to bigdropbrew.com. I really hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a blast for me. As I said, it's slightly surreal. I really hope you're all keeping well and that this gives you a bit of distraction from everything that's going on. Thank you very much to Big Drop for inviting me along to do this, and if you'd like to see any more recipes, I do actually have some over on bigdropbrew.com, or you can always buy the Beer Kitchen, of course. And I hope you stay happy and healthy and cooking with loved ones and friends, even if it's remotely. Enjoy, folks. Have a lovely evening. Thank you for coming.